Hello, so it's me again after a quick break. We're back here at 2013, Paper 1 reading part B2, a passage about dystopian literature. Yeah. Now, we are now up to question 55, the simile. The line where I mentioned previously. What does the simile, like a wicked strain of the flu, suggest about the book? Now there is a line on line 68-69, like a wicked strain of the flu, and the very one thing that you need to know first of all is that is a simile for the White Mountains. Some quick recap here. The White Mountains, in which alien overlords install mind control caps on the heads of all those over the age of 13. So here is a quick summary about the book, the dystopian piece of work, novel, The White Mountains. The White Mountains tore through the writer's own 6th grade classroom like a wicked strain of the flu. You have to know that the writer has been introducing different works of dystopian literature, and it seems that he is trying to say that these works are very attractive to teenagers. Yeah? And here is how he describes it. The book tore through his classroom when he was younger, when he was a teenager, like a wicked strain of the flu. As we all know, a flu can spread everywhere among people very quickly. So that's the power of flu. So in other words, the writer is describing the work, the very attractive, magical dystopian literature spreads like flu. Yeah, it's a little bit wicked, because the story is about the darker side of our world, the imperfections of our world. So that's why it's wicked. So it's like a wicked strain of the flu. Now, if you get that, you'll be able to answer the question, what does the simile suggest about the book? Well, first thing, that it spreads very quickly because it's like a flu. It's wicked because it's about the dark side of the world, but still it is very attractive, very appealing to the young readers. Put them together and you find this answer, because it means that the interest in dystopian novels for young adult readers, teenage readers, spread very quickly, just like a flu spreading very quickly. Or the book was infectious. Infectious means to be passed from one person to another person, like any virus or bacteria. So you can use the word if you know it. Or it was popular, widespread, big hit, very appealing because it's a wicked string of flu. Yeah. So to answer this kind of question, you have to target at those words, and in this case you have to explain now why it is a flu. It is like a flu. Why it is wicked. What does it mean by wicked? Does it mean that it's very bad, or does it mean quite the opposite, that it is appealing, attractive? Yeah. So put them together and you form your phrase, your answer, and you get that mark. It's not particularly hard, yeah, but it was very hard for the candidates. 56, paragraph 6. There you go, the typical arc of the dystopian narrative. Now, let me do you a favor by highlighting a few words like this first, so we know from paragraph 6 the normal course, the route, the path of the narration of a dystopian novel. First is laid out pleasant, like this example of uglies, blah 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 blah. Or in the giver, another example, no problem. So everything seemed pleasant. Yeah. And then somebody new, misfit turns up, the hero stumbles, so they encounter some kind of failures, yeah, misfit, stumbles. So here are a few keywords that you notice. And a crack opens in the facade. The hero discovers the lie, yeah, like this example, like that example, blah blah blah. And then conditions at home become more and more unbearable until finally the hero decides to make a break, heading out across dangerous terrain. Yeah, so you find first, then finally. First good, then something bad, and finally they make a break. So to put it simply, something like that. So with that understanding, now let's go back to the answers there. E. Tranquil. Fictional world is tranquil, meaning peaceful, quiet, harmonious. So first is very pleasant. E. Yes. C. The main character appears to be happy. Yes, of course, they are very happy. They think that everything is okay. Yeah, pleasant. Yeah, no problem. Carefree. So that's C. And then F. The main character discovers that something is wrong. Yeah, they stumble. They find that there is a lie. Discover a lie. So that's F. They find something is wrong. And then G, circumstances get worse and worse and become intolerable. We have a similar word here, which is unbearable. I mean, here. Things are getting more and more unbearable, intolerable until blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, so that's why it's G. And finally D, the main character makes a decision to break away, make a break for it. So that's 56. Yeah, that's how you go through everything. Even if you skip all these details, you still can manage to get the right answers. Trust me and trust yourself that you can do it. Yeah. Alright, now there we go. 57, another difficult question to candidates. The question: K. Simile argues that the hero in adult dystopian fiction should not. Alright, so we try to locate something, different in the passage. Yeah. So K. Simile, the very first thing, the clever thing to do is to locate the name. There you go. K. Simile. The British academic K. Simile argues that the protagonist's final defeat and failure is absolutely crucial to the monetary nature of the classic adult dystopia. Now let's stop for a moment and try to locate some key words. Adult dystopian fiction, yeah, and it says that argues that the protagonist's final defeat and failure is absolutely crucial. Well, it says here that it should not, so we better pay attention to words like these. The protagonist's final defeat and failure is absolutely crucial to the nature of the classic adult dystopia. Yeah. Alright, so if you go and take a good look at this sentence again, it means that for adult dystopia we have to, because it's absolutely crucial, we have to include the protagonist's final defeat and failure. This seems to be a crucial, indispensable element in adult dystopia. Follow that logic? Yes, it has to be there. The final defeat and failure. Now, if this is a key element in adult dystopia, then we have to go back there. So, in other words, it should not triumph at the end, fail at the end, change the behavior at the end, or have the same behavior at the end. If this is very important. Then it seems to us that A shouldn't be the case, should not triumph at the end, should not win at the end of the story, because a final defeat, a final failure is very important, is key, is crucial, is absolutely crucial. So line 110, 111, they bring you to the answer A, right? Don't be too scared. You can handle this if you just read carefully, locate the keywords, figure out the logic, and try to match it with the answers. Yeah, you can handle this. 58. What is the main purpose of paragraph 7? Well, that's a difficult one, with very low percentage of 19. Now the reason is that it requires an understanding, a macro understanding of paragraph 7. Now then, it seems inevitable for us to go through this together. Now I will have to go through paragraph 7 again with you and look at the structure of the whole paragraph. The youth-centered versions of Dystopia part company separate part company with the adult predecessors in some important respects. In other words, on one hand, now let me just use some colors there to help us. Now let me use orange for the young-centered version. Yeah, the dystopian literature for young people these days. And on the other hand, we find the adult version in the older days, adult predecessors, and they part company. That means they are very different in some very important respects. Yeah, that's it. So let me just put it back to blue. So is the adult dystopia. One striking feature is that this final defeat and failure is very important in adult dystopia. Alright. And there is another thing that we should not miss. For example, for one thing, the grown-up ones are grimmer, darker, less hopeful. So one, it is the adult dystopia. They are more hopeless, less hopeful, or they are grimmer. The second thing, they have this at the end because it's important. Yeah. The adult dystopia extrapolates from the present to show readers how terrible things will become if our deplorable behavior continues unchecked. So they try to show readers how terrible things will become if blah blah blah. So that's the third feature of adult dystopia. So far so good. Yeah. Now let's look at the other side, the young dystopia. Let me put it that way, because authors of children's literature, children's fiction, in other words the young dystopia, they are reluctant to depict the extinction of hope within the stories. So let me just highlight it for you. This is the first feature of young people's dystopian literature. They are reluctant to depict the distinction of, they need hope. They want to keep the hope within the stories. They equivocate when it comes to delivering a moral. That's another striking feature. They equivocate when it comes to delivering a moral. They avoid delivering, conveying a moral. So that's another thing about young literature. Alright, so already you see that really they part company. They are very very different. For the a quick summary here for you again. For the adult dystopia is less hopeful, but for the young dystopia, they want to keep the hope. It's more hopeful, in other words. Now another difference is that the young dystopia, they rarely give a very clear moral, but for the adult dystopia, it's always there is a final defeat, and they want to show how terrible things will become if our behavior continues unchecked. So it's a very clear moral message there. Two striking differences, at least. Yeah. So what is the main purpose of paragraph 7? If you have this macro view, first the adult dystopia and then the young dystopia and how they are different, and then finally what the writer really thinks. That's the last part. That's what the writer thinks. Yeah. So that's it. Well, we are finally there. The main purpose. Well, obviously, the writer is doing some comparison between the two types of dystopia: the adult-centered type and the young people-centered type. Yeah, youngster-centered type. So if you go to the model answer, the marking scheme, it says the main purpose is to compare the adult and youth dystopian fiction, or to compare the differences and similarities between children dystopia and adult dystopia. Got that? Got that? So it requires taking a macro view of the whole paragraph here. So it's quite another kind of question type that we need to learn how to deal with. Okay. We will have question 16 back here again, but before that, question 59, a word that means a major disaster. There you go. We have two choices. First, we have apocalypse. Yeah, apocalypse, the doomsday, the final day, the end of the world. That is an apocalypse, so it's like a major disaster. Another word will be catastrophe. Catastrophe in paragraph 7, which is right here. Yes, our errors and delusions may lead to catastrophe, a disaster, major disaster. Alright, so that's the answer. Not very difficult, but of course if you have a richer vocabulary, you will always have an upper hand. Yeah. 60. The young adult dystopian fiction different from adult dystopian fiction. Two differences. Well, again, if you refer to paragraph 17, if you have read paragraph 7 carefully, you will not get frustrated with this question 16, because it's simply a table comparing the two different types of dystopian fiction. So as I said, the adult version is grimmer. Yeah, it's grimmer, and then it often shows final defeat and failure, which is a key point, the failure of the protagonist, and the moral message is clearer. Yeah, as we see here, to makes a moral argument or argues a point, and it also tries to show how terrible things would become if blah blah blah. Clear moral message. On the other hand, the young dystopian fiction, well, they try to avoid giving a clear moral message, delivering a moral, or it's more like a fable, and it's less didactic. To be didactic, that is to teach something directly, black and white. Yeah. So young dystopian fiction is obviously less didactic because they want to keep it more blurry. Yeah. However, they are happier, they give a glimmer of hope, they are more hopeful in contrast to the adult version, which is usually grimmer, etc. Yeah. So again, if you get a hang of this paragraph 7, it shouldn't be a problem finishing question 60. Alright, so we'll have to move on. We are now up to question 61 after dealing with the differences. Now is the similarity. Now this is pretty obvious if we refer to paragraph 8, that is to warn about the dangers of the current trend in our society. There you go, to warn. That's from line 1 to 8 to 1 to 9. Question 62. What does this refer to with a very low percentage of 18? Probably because the candidates have no idea. Most of them do not have an idea how to what the pronoun refers to. Now, first of all, line 19. There you go. This. So if we start from the beginning of the paragraph, paragraph 9. Children, however, do not run the world, and teenagers especially feel the sting of this. So on and so forth, and you can continue, and sometimes the pronoun points forward to the next sentence, sometimes it refers back to the previous words, and in this case it actually refers back to the beginning of paragraph 9. Children do not run the world, and teenagers feel the sting of this. Teenagers feel the sting of what? Of the fact that children do not run the world. That's how you can arrive at the answer. Well, actually it's not that hard, because if you understand what it's saying, well, and the words here are not particularly difficult, you would know what this points at. My suggestion, however, is that in this case, because this refers to something, so what is that something? The something is not the children, something is not the world, but it is the fact that children do not run the world. So my advice for you is that it would be even better if you can add a few words before the model answer here. The fact that children do not run the world or control the world, or do not have control in the world. The fact that would be even better. Question 63. Why do you think some parents might disapprove of their children reading dystopian fiction? It is hard because it's not at all mentioned in the remaining paragraphs of the passage. It's not even mentioned, obviously, throughout the passage, and that the answer can only be known if you have a good understanding of the whole idea, and again you have to interpret the whole thing for yourself. Why so? Probably, well, we've seen quite a lot of good things about dystopian literature, but it seems that we are invited to look at the downside of dystopian fiction, and naturally you would think of answers like this, because the books, the dystopian fictions, they are filled with death, violence, hopelessness, doom, bleak future. Yeah. Especially when we look at the adult version of dystopian world, it's usually grimmer. So it's dark future, and because there are often warfares, and therefore there is death, violence everywhere. There are fights. But the books therefore can be scary, fearful, violent, and the books may teach children wrong behavior. So again, you don't get the answers directly from the text. You can't just lift it from the paragraphs, but if you have a good understanding of the main ideas, it's not a big problem getting the right words, the right answers. I mean, your own words. So that's 63. 64, the second last question. we have the last two questions in the form of an MC, multiple choice question. When teenage readers of today's dystopian fiction are adults, reality TV and privacy on the internet, so what would happen to reality TV and privacy on the internet? We find this on the last two paragraphs. There you go. Line 153. By then. So it says that kids continue to read the books, and some of them will surely grow up to write dystopian tales of their own, and by then, future, when they become adults one day, reality TV and privacy on the internet, keywords may seem like quaint, outdated problems. Now the key word here is outdated problems. So they are still they are still problems. They are still issues to be concerned about, but they are outdated. They are less important. They are less urgent. They take a secondary priority, in other words. So therefore, if you go through 1 through B to C to D, it's not that they do not exist, but they are of a lesser importance. They may be issues of lesser importance. Therefore, C should be the answer. Yeah, all right. They become outdated problems. Yes. Quaint, still interesting, still of some interest, but they are outdated. Yeah. 64. 65. The writer's conclusion is that a broken or post-apocalyptic world. Look at the last sentence for the last question. But the part about the world being broken or intolerable, about the need to sweep away the past to make room for the new, that part never gets old. That part of the world being broken, being disappointing, being intolerable, that part never gets old. That part will still be here in future. Yeah. So the writer's conclusion is that this broken or post-apocalyptic world, apocalypse, the end of the world, yeah, will forever remain a major part. That part will never get old. That will forever remain a major part of dystopian fiction. Yeah, yeah. So that's the end of the paper B2, part B2. The triumph of dystopian literature. So part A is about the terracotta warriors, the tomb of the first emperor of China, and the second passage in B2 is about dystopian literature, fictional work. And so it seems to us that it would be a clever thing to do if we can, have a wide range of reading habits and read something related to history, something related to literature, and it will, of course, do us a favor. And of course, it is also important to handle different kinds of question types carefully with certain skill, and I hope I have given you some important tips on handling, coping with the different sorts of question. Alright, so if you have any question, feel free to leave comment at the bottom at the comment box, or you can message me, and of course you can also go back to your teacher, English teacher, and try to see if there's some follow-up work to be done. But anyway, I hope you have benefited from this tutorial video, and stay healthy, and I'll see you soon, and take care till then. Bye bye.